and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Carrie Siggins. I'm so happy you are here today. Today, I want to talk about how to involve your employees in strategic planning. So, my cousin in law sent me an email and said this would be a really important topic for her as she's looking at how she can be more involved in strategic planning in her company and involve her team in it. And I thought, oh, this is perfect. We're literally just going through this right now. So I thought it would be a very good topic to discuss. So, first of all, let's talk a little bit about why it's important to involve your employees in strategic planning. If you want to have engaged employees who are all working in unison to achieve success for the company, then they need to not only understand the strategic planning process, but be involved in it as well. Now, of course, it's hard to scale. It's hard to get everybody involved in the strategic planning process in a company. I mean, I have 180 employees and it's very difficult. I can't even imagine what it would be like with thousands and thousands of employees. But I do think that leadership can involve their teams within the planning process and solicit new ideas and make sure everybody understands, asks questions, and is on board with the direction of the company. So here's how we do it at Stone Age. We did it a little bit differently this year, mostly because we've got our strategic planning process pretty dialed. At this point, we know exactly where we want to go as a company. I have a very clear, this is what the vision looks like, this is what the future looks like document that we are working off of that has evolved over the last 5 years. And now our strategic plan is really built around the steps that we are taking to achieve that vision. So there's not a lot of like brand new things that come up that would dramatically change our strategic direction. Certainly initiatives, it certainly evolves as we evolve. But earlier in my evolution as a CEO, it changed almost every year because we were just figuring out, how does all this strategy stuff work? How does it all go together? How does this build the roadmap for us? And I think as a team, as we got better at strategy, it made it a lot easier for us to have a very, I would say, stable strategic plan. Very disruptive, very forward thinking, very game changing strategic plan, but it is not, the structure of it isn't changing dramatically. And I say this in context because a lot of companies are different, right? Some might be a startup and you're just figuring out what your strategy is. And some companies might need to have a completely new strategy, a huge shift in their strategic planning process. And so, take this with, I don't know, a grain of salt of where we are at in our process because it might be very different for you. Nonetheless, wherever you are in your strategic planning process or evolution of how you think about planning, how you think about strategy, how it really ties to the vision that you have for your company or your team, you can involve your employees. So typically what we would do for our planning process is we would get the executive management team together and key managers and maybe three or four individual contributors who would apply to come to the strategic planning meeting, write a letter on why they wanted to come. It was really engaging. It worked really well. But that was when it was still really evolving. And now we're at the point that the executive management team and our department heads and the teams, they all really understand where we're going. So there's no need for this big, huge, like revolutionary planning process. So it wasn't an opportunity really for a lot of non-executive team members to participate in the planning meetings this year because really it's just an update from where we are, continuing on our focused plan that we already have in place. But we really wanted our teams to be involved, and we wanted them to be involved before we rolled it out and then asked for feedback. So this is what we came up with, and I think it worked really, really well this year. At least the feedback that I've gotten so far was fantastic. So we decided that we needed to help lay the groundwork for what our strategic plan is. And so we came up with a model to be able to walk our employees through our ideas for the key initiatives. Had to keep it simple, had to keep it high level, what the initiative is, why we were doing it, what problem it was solving, and how it fit into the vision of the company. So we created a slide for each of the initiatives. Now we only have 5 initiatives for 2023. At least major ones, right? There's a ton of departmental work, but when you have too many things going on, then you can't get them all done. So these 5 initiatives, they're all interconnected, but they're really important for part of our transformation as a company. So we lined out what that was. And then I made a video series explaining the vision, the what the future looks like document. Because if we sent that to employees, one, it's highly, highly sensitive and confidential information. But two, people wouldn't read it, right? It's way too complex, way too detailed, way too it's just way too much for employees, but they need to understand that we do have this really clear vision for what we want to be. We've been working off of it since 2018, and we have some pretty significant wins that we've had our planning process and our execution process has matured. So I went through and I made, 5 6-minute videos on each section. So what the future looks like, what each initiative meant, how it drove us to our future vision, and just try to lay it out there really simply for my team. And the reason why I did that was I know that even though my management team, my executive management team, really truly understands the strategy, that big picture piece, it's hard for them to pull it all together. And so I wanted the same narrative to go out to every employee. But I didn't want to get up at a company meeting and do it when, it's just me talking at them and it's hard to digest and you can't ask questions. So the management team, department heads are now armed with these very clear talking points, questions that we want to ask our employees about the strategic plan, get their feedback, get their ideas, and then the videos so that I can, present the topic, and then the manager can really lead the dialogue with his or her team. And so that's what we rolled out. So we had 6 short videos and we had a 6 slide PowerPoint that would go through and just list out what it was, why we're doing it, what problem we're trying to solve, how it helped us get to our vision, and then a list of the questions that we wanted to engage with our employees. It worked so well. The feedback that we got from our team was astounding. People could feel safe to ask really specific questions because it was in smaller groups with their teams. We got lots of great feedback, lots of questions on why are we doing this? What does this mean? And a couple of new ideas that we could incorporate into the plan. And so our employees really felt like they were part of the process. They really appreciated us trying to involve every single one of them. All 175 people got to talk through our strategic plan, listen to what we thought were the key initiatives for the year, how that would have impacted them, how they had a say in the work that they did, what that meant from their everyday tasks, and I think it was a really powerful exercise. It's the first time that we've involved every single one of our employees in the process. So that's how we did it. And it was scalable for us, right? I could spend some time making those videos, really laying out the picture, and then the managers could go in and use them with a framework. So everybody went through the same sort of dialogue, but it was tailored to a particular team, whether it's engineering or the machinist or the procurement team, right? Everybody comes at it from a different perspective. So it created dialogue. And I think that's really what's important for leaders to understand is that it's not about your employees coming up with some big idea or a new direction for the company. It's about creating the opportunity to have a dialogue about where you are going as a company, why you are going there, and how each individual person contributes to the execution of the strategy, contributes to creating the vision that is set out. And when your employees know that you're trying to involve them and you take their feedback and you answer their questions, they're going to be more engaged in the process. So that is how we did it this year. And it really was quite simple, to be honest. It took not a whole lot of time, but the payoff is going to be tremendous because now when we complete the strategic plan for 2023, what that looks like for the coming years, and we roll it out to the company, everybody really understands it. They've already seen it. And we can then focus on the departmental plans, which means this is how you are a part of achieving the strategy. or this is how you are part of delivering on the Stone Age Assurance Promise, which is how we take care of our customers, how our customers can rely on us to help them complete their jobs safely, on time, on budget, as easily as possible. This was a really powerful exercise. And it's important. Your employees want to understand the strategy. They want to understand how they fit into the strategy. They want to have a say in their work. And it doesn't mean to say, "Oh, nope, I completely disagree with, where we're going as a company," although some might, and that's okay. But really, people just want to be able to say, "Hey, what if we did this?" Or, "Why is this initiative more important than this one? What if we did this?" Could we move the needle faster if we did this direction, went this direction? That is how you engage your employees. Now, as a manager, as a leader, you have to be humble enough to really go seek that feedback and not get defensive if somebody doesn't like the direction that you're going or doesn't understand or adamantly disagrees. In fact, my engineering team adamantly disagrees, probably because they don't really fully understand it with a pretty important piece of our strategy is we're transforming from a traditional manufacturing company to a technology company, as a solutions as a service company. And that's okay, right? What we can do now is we can have a dialogue about it. And it doesn't mean that because I have people who disagree with the initiative that we're going to stop it. It means that I need to do some more education around it, that we really need to show how we're being very methodical in our decision making and appreciate their skepticism because they're right. Like it might not work. We are trying to do some big things, and we know when we do big things that it might fail. And so, how do we fail fast and keep iterating? But just because there's skepticism doesn't mean that we're not going to do it. It just means that we're going to involve them in the process more, make sure that we're being really clear on what we're doing. And if we do make a mistake, be transparent and honest with them and say, "Hey, thanks for pointing out that this might have gone wrong. Here's how we mitigated it, or here's where you were right, and now what we're doing to fix it." Like that's just how you lead, with transparency, with humility, with vulnerability, and with inclusiveness for your entire team. So that is what we did. I think a couple points to remember as you're laying out the strategic planning process and involving more of your employees. You, as a leader of a company or as a team, like you're still ultimately responsible for the vision of the team, the vision of the company, and how you're going to get there. So don't forget that, right? It's easy to maybe have somebody say, I don't get that. Why are we doing that?" And maybe second guess yourself. But you have a lot more detail. You have a lot more of the big picture than most of your employees do. So it's really good to take that feedback, but don't forget that you have that bigger perspective. And so don't lose sight of that, especially if there's pushback on certain parts of the strategy. Take the feedback, make adjustments, but still stay clear on your vision and where you want to go. Number two, it's really important for you to have buy-in for your vision, to achieve your vision, to achieve your strategy, to execute your strategy. So the more you can involve employees in the process, the more engagement you'll have, which means you'll have a better opportunity for execution. So engagement equals execution. Don't forget that. That's a really important point, especially when you might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed about doing this. Number three is it's great to get new ideas, but you don't need to let those new ideas take you off in a different direction, right? The best strategic plan is one that's executed really well. You can have a great plan with poor execution because it's like, "Ooh, squirrel. Ooh, shiny object. Ooh, let's change this idea. Let's follow this." Focused discipline on what you do really well is how you are going to win. So when you get new ideas, don't just dismiss them, but make sure that if you are going to implement them, that it makes sense in a focused, disciplined way that you think about your strategic plan and execution of that strategic plan. Staying focused matters. It's my fourth point. Stay focused, stay focused, stay focused. That is how you succeed. Relentless execution of your plan through focused discipline by not trying to take on too much, by not changing directions too fast. And I know this from experience because I used to change too fast because I would get impatient. And now I really learned that you have to plant the seeds and let them grow. So that's what focus, time, patience, and flawless and relentless execution of your plan does. All right. So hopefully that will inspire you to think of some ways that you can involve your team, your employees in the strategic planning process. Even if you are not the leader of a company, you certainly, as a manager, can follow this process. You can say, okay, here's a strategic plan. What do you think about it? Let's talk about it, right? You, as a manager, as a leader within your company, you can do all of these things without direction from your boss, without direction from your CEO. You can involve and engage your employees. That is what will make them love working for you. Okay, question of the week comes from a friend of mine who asked, "What are you reading now?" And I get asked often what I'm reading now. And so I'm going to be including these as part of my questions of the week. So I'm really reading a really fascinating book called The Premonition, a Pandemic Story. So it is all about how we got to the COVID-19 pandemic and all of the things leading up that were warning signs for where this was going to go. And it is fascinating. A little slow to get started, but the storytelling in this book is fantastic. And I am learning so much about how government works, how the medical advisors, how chief medical officers, how the CDC works. And it's really quite fascinating. So I would recommend it, right? We were all impacted by the pandemic, some greatly impacted by the pandemic. And this shares ways that we can be ready for the next one, because there will be a next one, and what the warning signs are and how we can pay attention to science and use science to make better decisions about how we address public health crises like the pandemic, like the COVID-19 pandemic brought about for us. So that's what I'm reading now. Okay, well, I will leave you to your day. I hope you have a fantastic one. Please feel free to like this podcast, write a review, rate it, share it with a friend. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, take a listen. I always appreciate it. It helps spread the good word. I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks. Take care.